New tonight, the White House refusing to apologize for an age joke about John McCain dying. Here's the White House Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah taking reporter questions today.
Why not just apologize so America doesn't think that that is an acceptable way of speaking inside this White House?
Well, I understand the focus on this issue, but it's going to be dealt with and has been dealt with internally.
Kelly Sadler told Meghan McCain that she would apologize publicly, and that has not yet happened. Why has that not happened?
I wasn't on the call. I was told she made it prior to the story being published.
Why hasn't she publicly apologized as she told Meghan McCain that she would?
She has addressed it with the family directly.
According to Shah, the issue you heard is being dealt with internally and with the family. Why not apologize, though? The number 2 Senate Republican, John Cornyn, said today, quote, "I think an apology is appropriate." And the number 3 Republican Senator, John Thune, said, obviously what was said was wrong and inappropriate. It would have been a lot easier if they had just nipped it right away, and she came out with an apology. Thune adding later that it would, quote, have been nice if Trump himself had apologized for the remark, noting, I'm guessing he's probably beyond that at this point. Well, on that, Thune has a point, because if owning what your staff says and being responsible for it, admitting when you're wrong is what's required from a leader in this case, it sure does not seem like we are going to get it, because Trump's example is usually don't apologize, unless you have to, which in his case, of course, is pretty much never.
The lawyers for the opponents said that if you would simply apologize for some of your rhetoric during the campaign, the whole case would go away. And I was wondering if you would
I don't
be
think
willing.
it would, number one. And there's no reason to apologize. There's nothing to apologize for.
When was the last time you actually apologized for something?
Oh, wow.
I do believe in apologizing if you're wrong. But if you're not wrong, I don't believe in apologizing.
I held my line, and people wanted me to apologize, and we can't do that.
Okay, out front tonight, Joan Walsh, national affairs correspondent for The Nation, and Jason Miller, former senior communications advisor for the Trump campaign. Jason, everybody knows that what was said here was wrong, okay? Cruel, whatever word you'd like to use. Why can't they just come out and say, sorry?
Well, Aaron, I agree with you on that point, that I think this could have been handled a lot better. And last Thursday, Kelly Sadler simply should have come forward and apologized. I think the White House could have announced that this was then being dealt with by HR or dealt with internally. I think this is probably then goes away. I think this probably wasn't even something that would have been discussed going into the weekend, and certainly not something that's discussed now. I do not think this is something that the president needs to go and apologize for. It's not something that he said. And I certainly don't think that it's really an issue that really should be continuing for 3 or 4 days later. But going back to the initial point, yeah, I mean, it's a comment that shouldn't have been.
Look, that's why I brought up, you have the number 2 and number 3 Senate Republicans who are asking for the apology. I mean, just to make the point, Jason, right? It's not the media asking for it. It's not Democrats. You got top Republicans today.
Well, a lot of these folks are getting back into town, and so they're just being asked the question now. But again, like I said, this is something that shouldn't have gone past last Thursday. I mean, it would have been real easy to deal with. Again, it was an unfortunate comment. It shouldn't have been made. Deal with it with an apology. The White House can deal with it, whether it's HR, an administrative matter. They can, whatever their internal protocols are. But this is not something I think that warrants going 3 or 4 days down the road. And yet, I do think the president is absolutely spot on, though, when he put the tweet out a little while ago, saying that this was literally a traitorous type action to go and leak something like this out, though. That's really problematic.
But first, Joan, isn't it true if the White House Jason said this could have all gone away with an apology? Yeah, it should have. It could have. And it should have. But nobody at the White House had her do it.
No.
That's the truth. Nobody asked her to do it. She wouldn't have defied her boss on telling her to do that.
A reason that this is still a story is we learned that Kelly Sadler apologized to Meghan McCain, that Meghan McCain asked that she do it publicly. Kelly Sadler said she would. She did not. That's one reason.
That's right.
The other thing we learned over the weekend, Aaron, is that Mercedes Schlapp, the acting communications head, let it be known that she stands with Kelly Sadler. And then people are finally doing what Jason is doing and acting as though the person who leaked this is the real problem rather than the person who said it. And I just want to say one thing about the president and leaks. First of all, that tweet was incoherent. It said this was all fake news, but then it didn't happen. But then there are leakers and they're traitors. The president then is the number one traitor because, Jason, he actually goes out to the press and he trashes his staff. He did it during the campaign. He trashes his cabinet, sometimes off off the record, sometimes publicly. So this president, this all comes from the top. He hates John McCain. He'll never apologize, and he loves to leak and trash his own people on his own time. So he's got no credibility to attack anyone else in this situation. It's preposterous.
Joan, hold on a moment. I mean, a couple of things can be true here at the same time. I very clearly said that these comments were inappropriate and shouldn't have been made. I said that an apology should have been made days ago, and we shouldn't have gotten to this point. At the same time, I think the fact that these comments were leaked out of the White House, and then the fact that they had a meeting about this and that then leaked out, I think is very problematic for this White House. I think it probably discourages. I think it. Oh, I absolutely think it's traitors because not only it is absolutely traitorous for someone to go and leak these things out, because not only does it pull the president into this, it pulls out the entire White House into this mess. When what should we be talking about today? Should we be talking about the embassy moving to Jerusalem? We should be talking about the fact that this morning Gallup put out the single highest set of poll numbers this president has had as an entire presidency. So clearly what the rest of the country, is seeing is completely different than this topic. So two things can be true at the same time, and I've been very clear with where I think on it.
Yes, so let me read the tweet here that the president came out. This was his tweet. The so-called leaks coming out of the White House are a massive over-exaggeration put out by the fake news media in order to make us look as bad as possible. Again, I'll editorialize here by saying anybody has disputed what was said. So it's not an exaggeration and it's not fake news. However, with that being said, he continues, leakers are traitors and cowards, and we will find out who they are. Jason, Kellyanne Conway just did an interview a moment ago and was asked about whether she and the president had talked about staff changes today about these leaks. And she said, she was asked, do you think there will be staff changes? She said, I do, actually. Yes, I do. So do you think someone's going to be fired over this? And I guess my question is, Jason, then are we really going to say the person who leaked it's going to be fired and not the person who joked about John McCain dying?
Well, again, I think there are two separate things. I do think that there's probably a disciplinary measure that goes along with making a comment, like with what Kelly Sadler said. I'll leave that to the HR and the administration folks, so I'm not going to get into trying to play their role. I also think that there's a very severe punishment that should go along with leaking something from the White House. So I think, again, their punishment is probably that's warranted on both. But again, I'm glad to hear Kellyanne make that comment, because it is about time that they track down and find out who some of these leakers are. They're not serving the president well. They're not serving the country well. And if they find out who did this, I hope they throw them out quick.
But this is the leakiest White House in
there are a lot of people who are doing
our adult memory. I'm sure Kellyanne occasionally is one of them. Jason, I mean, and there's a reason, and it starts at the top. It starts with the president's disrespect for his staff, for the truth. It then trickles down to a dysfunctional White House where everybody is at each other's throats and happy to leak and happy to backbite and backstab. So this is more than just some errant staffer who spoke out of turn about a joke or whatever you want to call it in a staff meeting. This is systemic.
Well, and and that's why I think that they should have said something about it last Thursday, because I don't think that the rest of the folks in the White House would have made a comment like that. And I think that's why it would have been better if they took quick action on Thursday. And again, Joan, we're going to agree to disagree on our opinions on the president. But I notice you're not pushing back on all the accomplishments and the things that we should be talking about, the great things that President Trump is doing, because he's on a roll. I think he's doing great things right now.
Palestinians who died, who were shot today.
Well, then you know what? Then tell Hamas and tell Iran. Then tell Iran to quit sending them out there.
Thank you both.